Welcome to the House of Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Derek.
I'm back after eating 40 pizzas in 30 days.
And Sean.
Hello.
And we're also joined here at the moment by Moose, who's a cat. She just really wanted to be a part of this discussion. So we're going to do a movie that is a parody film that parodies other movies we've covered. And I had forgotten just how much pop culture it fit into it back when it came out in 2000. Scary movie.
Real quick, too, talk about the new format change maybe next year that we're talking about doing.
Yeah, so something we're thinking about doing, if you're listening via the iTunes or the podcast feeds, and you never watch the YouTube videos, this won't really apply, but because typically what we do is we take the entire episodes. We used to just record them over Skype or remotely. And then we release those videos onto YouTube and we're like, well, this kind of looks crap. Let's actually just record them in person. And then it just, then we got to the point where that just allows for a much better conversation and it flows a lot better and is a lot easier. So we shoot all of them in person. So what we do is we shoot the video of the podcast and put it on YouTube, the entire thing. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of editing, like trimming out stuff here and there if we have to take a break or something happens. But typically, it's just running through unedited, just the complete conversation that is the audio podcast. And realistically, so beyond just, does that work the best for YouTube? The other thing we run into is the length of the podcast episodes will oftentimes be similar in length to a movie. So then we'll end up where one of the podcasts blows up and gets a few thousand views in the Philippines or Indonesia or somewhere. And just gets a bombardment of downvotes because people thought it was the movie, not a discussion about the movie. And there's really no way to get around that because no matter what you put in the title, it's people who aren't reading it in the native language. So it just causes problems. And we're just like, well, maybe it's not the most engaging thing for YouTube to have a hour-plus video of just a stationary camera angle talking. So the idea is that we would still record the full-length podcast episodes and release those as the audio on the podcast apps to iTunes, through whatever RSS feed, the different things like that, and then record a shorter, separate discussion that would go to YouTube only. That would not be, because I think before we had taken like snippets out of the podcast and put them on there as a video review, but even that, most people don't want a 45-minute review of a movie. Mm-hmm. So our thought was to maybe release videos on YouTube that are maybe, 10 minutes in length that avoid spoilers and are just general discussions about just the movie. And then in those episodes, we can just have one of the links either at the end in the end screen or the cards that YouTube has. It just goes to listen to the full episode via audio if you want to. So that's a format change we're thinking about doing just to kind of engage the video audience a little bit more. Because if we're doing a 10-minute video, it's a little bit easier for me to go in and trim it up and speed it up and make it a little bit more flashy. If it's an hour and a half long video, I just do not have the time to, and none of us do, to go through and cut it out and put images in and trim it up and cut in all the fat and the ums and all this stuff that we could do. So that was a format change we're thinking about doing. So the audio, if you're listening via audio, wouldn't change anything. There would just be additional stuff out there you could see that would be different than the audio discussion if you wanted to. And if you watch via YouTube, there would be shorter discussions that would point to where you can listen to the full audio podcast if you so choose, just to make it a little bit more visually entertaining and to stop some of the confusion where we get a bomb of negative feedback from the Philippines or India or somewhere for a week.
This is not full movie.
Because I was sitting there looking and then like it was being foreign language, so I have to go to Google Translate and somebody's like, I looked for this good movie, not a discussion of it, terrible. I was like, well, I mean, the title says podcast, but I guess people don't understand what podcast is in some parts of the world because it's not as prevalent. So that's a discussion, something we think about doing in terms of changing it up.
Because we have a large international demographic.
Well, I mean...
We've had some stuff hit, some short films and stuff hit overseas.
Yeah, I just, and to try to parse the numbers, like when some of the podcast episodes will have on YouTube, 5,000 views, like how many people actually cared to listen to it? And how many people just came across it because it was an hour and 24 minutes and they thought it was the full movie sped up to avoid the YouTube copyrights. Who knows? So that's something we're planning to do, not with this episode, but sometime in the near future, just recording YouTube only separate videos and still just having the audio only versions go out to the podcast apps. And we were recording after Thanksgiving. So this is after the Thanksgiving, Black Friday, hullabaloo.
Real quick, before Thanksgiving, I saw Knives Out, which was awesome.
Yeah, I did not get to see that yet.
Irishman.
I haven't seen that yet.
I was debating on if that was going to beat Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for me. And the more I think about it, I might actually like that more than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That was my number one film. But I also saw Parasite. Parasite is my number one film. Of the year so far. So I highly recommend seeing that. I think it's the best thing all year that I've personally seen. But I mean, it's been like an insanely strong year for movies. Like normally they'll be like, oh, that's my obvious choice. I mean, Parasite is my obvious choice, but like even if that film didn't exist, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and The Irishman, you know what I mean? And there's still some stuff to come.
So
like
it's been a really good year of film for white men. I'm just joking. There's been a lot of diverse stuff out there, but because I have
my number one film's a foreign film, man.
I have seen criticism of The Irishman. I have not watched it yet because it's 3.5 hours. I just have barely had time to sit down.
It's worth it, man. It's a long I just stayed up all night. It's worth it.
I mean, I want to see it. I'm definitely going to watch it. It's just like in between, like for Thanksgiving on Thursday and Friday, going to multiple places, and then Saturday having stuff to do, and Sunday having stuff to do is just a lot of things going on. So I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I will get to it soon. I didn't really get a chance to watch much. I've just been watching TV, like Watchmen, that I've been enjoying greatly. Castle Rock Season 2, I thought has been a huge improvement over Season 1. If you didn't really enjoy Season 1, you thought it drug on and didn't really do much, I would recommend giving it a chance in Season 2 because it is a much more character-focused season and has some awesome performances because it has Annie Wilkes, like the character that was from Misery, but it's played by Lizzie Kaplan, who's doing a great job. So just, something where I was kind of very after Season 1. Season 2 really turned me around on it. Have not watched the latest episode.
Can you jump into Season 2 and be fine?
Yeah, there's very few tidbits that link the seasons. There's a few like common locations and character references, but it's not the same core cast.
That's good.
Each season is kind of taking a different branch of Stephen King mythology and doing its own thing. So if you didn't watch Season 1, you don't have to. You can jump in and watch Season 2 because they don't connect. Or at least I haven't watched the most recent episode, but they don't connect as far as I've seen in any major way that benefits you to have seen 1 before 2. Mandalorian, I haven't watched the most recent episode. I've enjoyed that. I think there's some element of people hyping it up just because they hated The Last Jedi so much and to kind of be like, this is what we want, not that.
Well, which is funny though, because
independent, it's still entertaining.
Like to me, I think I was a huge fan of The Last Jedi. It's probably currently right now my favorite Star Wars movie, and I don't really necessarily get all the hate that it got. But I do like The Mandalorian because it's kind of like the first non-Skywalker-centric like movie they've made, because every Star Wars movie they've made before somehow, as if where it's at right now, I don't know where the end of the season is going to be, but this is not Skywalker specific. There's really nothing that ties it to that.
Did you see Solo?
Well, but Solo is a Skywalker specific.
I know it is.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying. But this is like one of those.
Yeah.
I don't. Everybody knows about Baby Yoda. Everybody knows about Baby Yoda. You can't be on the internet and not know about Baby Yoda.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where
I saw somebody say that the other day. It was literally yesterday, and somebody said, like, what the hell is that little Star Wars? Is that a Star Wars something? Like yesterday, they were online on Twitter. I guess the circle they run on Twitter, they hadn't seen that image until yesterday. I don't see how that's possible.
Yeah, because like even people that I didn't think like Star Wars still post like enough Baby Yoda memes. Well, but we'll see where that ties into it. But to me, it is nice that they have a Star Wars franchise that, as of right now, none of it ties into the Skywalker lore whatsoever.
I'm going in. WTF is that? Some Star Wars gremlin? This was yesterday.
Well, I think part, like, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think part of it's just that it doesn't have to be so substantial because it's just a show. Yeah. It doesn't have to carry the burden of a $1 billion film franchise that will be scrutinized left and right.
It's something different. It kind of reminds me of, like, Knights of the Old Republic a little bit in the fact that it's just different and it's fun. Not everything has to be... I would like to see us continue to be successful and get more stuff in this light where you can kind of get out and branch out and do something a little different. You're not so tied into doing Jedi-centric things or everything. Like even with, what was the one they did, the one-off movie?
Rogue One.
Rogue One, like
Here's
that.
the thing, that even though they've done like Rogue One and Solo as spin-off films, they're still only filling in the backstory of stuff you already knew
Yeah,
about.
that's what I'm saying. That's
This
where
is
this
just
is
the first time. I mean, there's like the prequels that once again just filled in stuff you'd only kind of heard about. This is one of the few times where they have a character that's not connected to any of that pre-existing lore
that we
just
know
kind
of
of
so
doing
far.
their own thing.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a huge disservice to tie back into all the movies and stuff. And I don't think it will, because the level of coordination it takes to tie movies into TV shows, like Marvel learned that the hard way with the series they had before.
But that's what they're doing now, right? They said their new shows are going to be tied
But that's
in.
different, because
yeah.
now it's the same. It's
Yeah,
like,
but I'm
it's,
just saying.
because they're going to actually have all of the movie actors, but it's all being overseen by the film side of it.
I mean, Kathleen Kennedy's overseeing this, isn't she?
Yeah.
Mandalorian, you know.
I mean, it's Jon Favreau
Yeah.
who's the showrunner, I think. But
when you
I thought I
have,
heard both of them two is the one that came up with the story.
well, no. So here's
for
the
it.
thing: she's been involved in all the Star Wars stuff up to now, but just I think the point is just that with the TV, if you want to tie a TV series into a movie, so like you said, somebody didn't know what Baby Yoda is. So if your enjoyment of a $300 million budgeted movie with a $300 million ad campaign requires people to have seen 10 episodes of a TV series on a streaming service, nobody's ever going to do that because it limits your audience.
except for Marvel.
So it just being its own standalone thing that may touch on some of the edges of lore, but doesn't actually have to be connected to any of it is nice.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about that, before we get in the podcast is, because I'd missed a podcast or two, is I got Death Stranding. Because I was going to wait, and obviously no spoilers about the story or anything, but I was going to wait to get it to Christmas, and I bought it the second day it came out, because I wasn't going to wait, so I had to go buy PlayStation 4 and that. But anyway, I know you've played it.
Yeah,
William
I'll probably
hasn't
put
played it.
15, 20 hours into it.
Yeah,
I still got a ways to go.
I would like to look and see how much time I
Yeah.
have in it, because I beat it yesterday. And, it's one of those things where, we've kind of talked about before, the game's a little bit of a chore. But I think the story's really good. And one thing that I've always liked about Hideo Kojima, which I'm hoping to say Hideo Kojima, is that he's always just great at making, relatable, likable villains. I don't really know of anybody else that's done that on a consistent basis. Because every Metal Gear Solid game always has a likable, antagonist. Or not likable, but you get the method behind them. You get why they are. It makes sense.
Somebody pointed out, I don't know what movie they were talking about, but they were saying the Marvel films, they seem, after Iron Man 1 was the only Marvel film where the bad guy was realistic and just being I just want more money and to control stuff. They were every other Marvel film, almost the bad guys have had their point of view, and they were it always seems like it's the writers that are saying the good guy's perspective and the bad guy's perspective make up their vision of hey, what they believe in, but it's you got to give the bad guy a little bit of that or whatever. So it's kind of what this is doing basically, right? Yeah.
But it's just really interesting to get but you just see because I've been playing his video games that he's made for, when did Metal Gear Solid come out?
98.
So over 21 years, over 21 years. And the level of consistency of which you can create good villains is just pretty awesome. Because a lot of people you think over time would lose that,
Yeah, I mean,
but they're always different.
I'm
which is
very
nice.
curious because they said too the Kojima Productions is also going to be moving into making films. I'm really wondering.
I would be really interested in that,
entail.
because I would like, and the only thing I would say is I thought this game was gonna be a little more horror centric just from the trailers. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I didn't do a whole lot of research for the game. It is a lot different than I thought it was, which is great. It's not a negative thing. But I was expecting more, I guess, because you came off of Silent Hills or whatever it was called. You had that, and that didn't happen. And then just little tidbits you got to see.
PT, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to jump back into it, but it is I know I got a long road there, so I've been diving into movies. You know what I mean? Just Irishman. Okay, I'm gonna watch that instead.
Yeah.
Something to digest and get through. But
There's 3 parts, and it's a very long game, but I does kind of make me interested to go back and maybe play some of the Zelda games that are more open world too. That have been
you need to play that new one on Switch. I know you don't want to get a Switch, but that new one that's open world is really good.
Yeah, I like to play that.
It's really fun.
But yeah, so
Scary movie, William.
yeah, scary movie. So 2000, and you're oh, why are we talking about scary movie? It's just a parody, and then it's easy to forget what that movie did numbers wise. So that movie was made for an estimated budget of $19 million. Its opening weekend was $42 million just in the U.S. It grossed in the U.S. $157 million. And worldwide, it grossed $278 million. So this movie outgrossed the recent Halloween 2018 worldwide, I think. It was either or close to it or above it or whatever. But you're talking about in 2000. So if you adjust all this for inflation, it's like over $400 million budget or gross worldwide. And that is huge for a movie of this type. For a movie that they budgeted $19 million. When I was watching, I was like, oh man, this all is shot so flat. Like it's all just brightly lit. There's really not
That's how
any...
most comedies are.
Well, that's how most comedies and that's how a lot of movies in that era were shot, where there wasn't all the kind of like mood lighting and stuff that kind of gave dimensions to the environments they shot in. But yeah, so the movie was a huge, huge success, and it was directed by Keenen Ivory Wayans. And then, Sean and Marlon Wayans were some of the writers. And then it's funny. So they're like the top line writers, Sean and Marlon Wayans, because obviously they're in the film. But then there's also 1, 2, 3, 4 more writers credited.
Wasn't it Craig Mazin, who recently did Chernobyl? You haven't watched Chernobyl yet, have you?
I have.
Did you? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think he said the hardest he ever worked was, I think he worked on the Scary Movie, like some of the later ones, was the hardest he ever worked was on that. He won an Oscar for Chernobyl. He created that whole series and everything. And he's like, the hardest I've ever had to work was on the Scary Movie. He said because they had to write so fast and turn out the jokes and everything.
It's just
he's done a lot of stuff, but he's just it was insane.
Yeah, because this movie had Anna Faris, of course. Then also had Sean Marlon Wayans, John Abrahams, Carmen Electra. It's funny who's listed as the top bill. This is definitely based on when it came out. Dave Sheridan.
Who's Dave Sheridan? Is he the one that's in Night of the Roxbury? Oh no, who's the one that's in Night of the Roxbury as well? He's in Night of the Roxbury. He's in Dead Man on Campus. He plays. He's the guy with the small penis. He's great. I loved him in comedies in of this era,
Lachlan Monroe.
Okay. I can never remember his name.
It's funny how they have this all in order. And then Regina Hall, who's been in stuff recently and been popular. So
yeah, she's really hit it.
So this movie...
I mean, she's been in stuff since then, consistently. But now
something that this movie did kind of stealth back when it came out was, some of the, had a black director, black writers, black co-stars, a pretty diverse cast for the time for horror. When you consider the era of, Scream or a lot of those movies, and then Scream 2 actively tried to address that a little bit. But I mean, this movie, I always forget what era these came out in because of the things they ape, or the things that they not rip off, but they parody. And with this one, it's full spoilers. I mean, it's a scary movie.
Yeah, what are you going to spoil? Yeah, it's all bits on horror films. So.
And it's funny because 1 and 2, I distinctly remember a lot of the gags from them and a lot of the things that happen. 3 on kind of just go all over the place.
The only reason why I remember 3 is because Leslie Nielsen's in it.
Yeah, well,
and outside of that,
3 was when the Zuckers took over, wasn't it? Because they changed the creative
I believe
team.
so, yeah.
3 was a lot different.
The reason was that 2 had a higher budget and grossed less. It grossed almost half of what the first one did with double the budget.
And 2, kind of to back things up a little bit, did you guys ever see I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker? Keenen Ivory Wayans directed that too. That was 1988. That was a blaxploitation spoof parody film. But it was 12 years before. It was just very funny. It's really good. But you know what I mean? He had this experience before. Yeah. And it's basically they took it to horror and...
Yeah.
And it's funny that nobody really talks about this movie in that context of, big box office success movies directed by non-white directors.
I guess you wouldn't think about it because it's a scary movie. Because I think what happened with scary movies is the same thing that happened with POV horror movies and stuff or whatever.
Or the family.
Whatever, whatever they are.
Spoof movies?
Yeah.
Because
there were so many of them. Because when I was in high school, because I went from 04 to 08. So in that time frame, and maybe a year or two after, you had Not Another Teen Movie, which was in that time frame. Mm-hmm. Then you had the Not Another Superhero Movie. Then you had Not Another Romance.
That's when they really, yeah.
And then you had all these different.
I think Scary Movie. I think initially the first one and the second one were kind of a cut above a lot of those. And what's funny is the Wayans did other ones after that. They even
did the spoof on Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, so they've done a bunch of them since then with reduced returns, but I think part of it's just the timing of it and the style. That style's kind of gone away. Of the straight up just take a popular thing and parody it.
Well,
I was thinking
because it got overdone. And two, like I think the success of stuff like Family Guy and like South Park and all this other stuff.
Well, there's also the thing.
And too, again, people go to theaters for different things now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is like kind of just a light. I think this sort of comedies maybe don't do as well in theaters. And I was trying to think what the evolution of this is. And it's not the exact same thing, but I think like This Is the End is a version of this almost.
Kinda.
They're parodying themselves, you know?
Well, but
it is, it's something different, but it is more of a genre spoof.
I think that like, I don't even know those are comparable. I think the most comparable thing to what Scary Movie did was individual segments from Key and Peele or stuff on YouTube.
I mean,
But they always had those. That was SNL. You know what I mean? It was basically SNL.
Yeah.
But I think that what happened though is what used to, because 2000 the internet existed, but YouTube wasn't out yet. Video was still kind of a very small niche thing. There wasn't as much content on the internet. There wasn't stuff like this. And because you think about it, the movie came out in 2000. It's parodying stuff like from the first Scream verbatim, which came out in 96.
But
so there's a lot longer turnaround time with pop culture in the pre-internet or the pre-social media era, and when cable networks still existed and showed stuff over and over.
But too, though, these movies, maybe as far, because you go back and watch some of these bits they do, they are, I mean, like you see the tiny penis shot, and then you have
What's funny though
the
is,
crossing the legs from, what movie is that from? I can't think of what it is. The Sharon Stone. They reference that. There's not a lot of movies that do stuff like that. So I do think these were crossing boundaries at the time that weren't typical. Because a lot of times when you did comedy movies like this, you think of stuff like Airplane, because this is very much in the style.
Yeah, I mean,
of
there
that.
was Hot Shots too, because I was like, I know I watched a ton of these. Loaded Weapon, Spaceballs. It was like this one. This one did branch out a little bit more.
Well,
but
this one seemed like it was a lot more crude than those, because like those movies, while they have their moments, to me this was like a little cruder than like, because Spaceballs, they had their moments, but you never had a dick fall
But I think
out,
part of
any
it too was
it,
like, and I'm not trying like, but I think part of it was that a lot of horror movies have fans that are not white, and then the actual like, okay, well here's a movie that's a parody and a jokey one, but it actually has a lot of people in the leads that aren't white, 30. Well, it's funny because everybody is definitely not high school age. Everybody is definitely,
and they make a joke about it.
Yeah, I mean, but
the funny thing is, like, Shannon Elizabeth is in it.
Shannon Elizabeth. I don't think about that.
Which she was in Jack Frost, the horror movie, which came out previous years before that. Then she
American Pie.
but then she was in an actual horror movie, 13 Ghosts, a year or two after this came out. So it's just kind of funny to see how.
It's funny because like in these later sequels, Anthony Anderson was in them, and then he was in Scream 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's like all this cross pollination of people that kind of go in and out of these movies.
So something about the jokes too. Within, I think it was the first 16 minutes, there are 2 road dome jokes because the dad is getting a BJ in the car and hits Carmen Electra. And then when Anna Faris in the flashback of like, a year before, she like accidentally gives him a BJ. Like there's and somebody gets hit by a car. Like they use the same joke kind of twice within 60 minutes, but I've laughed at both of them. You know what I mean?
They use it in the second one too. I mean, there's a lot of recurring jokes.
Yeah.
And it's funny watching this because as I was watching it, like Julie was going in and out, and it's like, yeah, a lot of this comedy was funny. Like to me, it was really funny when I was 15 in 2000. But some of this stuff would probably get them in hot water if released today.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, that's every comedy. That's every comedy. That's what they're trying to do. They were trying to push buttons back then, too.
Because
you know what I mean?
To me, this was like a cruder comedy than a lot of stuff you get now. Because,
and that's why it hit with teens so much.
Yeah, because you don't always get to see stuff like this.
So, like, I don't know if it's really worth discussing the plot, but I mean, it follows loosely the plot of the first Scream film. It's like, that's the bones of it. That you have the Cindy character and her boyfriend, and it's just pretty much aping the plot of Scream.
Yeah. Which is funny though, because they actually got Carmen Electra to be in it, and at that time she was a much bigger deal. I don't think
there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. I mean, and so you had that where it's kind of using the original Scream as its framework, but then it goes off into a lot of like little non sequiturs and separate things, and they have a lot of gags that pull from The Matrix. That pull
everybody made fun of The
I
Matrix.
don't remember what else. There's a bunch of stuff in there that's just randomly kind of thrown in. And there's a lot of humor about the character of Ray is he gay or not?
It's funny because he's never shamed for it, and he doesn't seem to. He almost seems oblivious.
No,
because he's like, no.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many funny moments. Was one when he's like, he starts getting an argument with I think Anna Faris's boyfriend. And he's like, "You want to get butt naked and wrestle? Where's the Vaseline?"
Or like,
and then the joke about racing everybody to the showers, and he's like snapping towels. Like, it's not making fun of the fact that he is gay. It's just like the context of him almost being oblivious.
Yeah,
like, it's such a weird thing.
But it doesn't like affect him.
So wait a minute.
But yeah, it's a weird thing.
The
like,
fact that he's oblivious to maybe being gay and not caring about the gayness is what makes it fun.
It seems like it's like, still somewhat safe. It's just...
So here's something I just connected the dots on. So we're only talking about the first movie mostly, but the second movie had David Cross. David Cross is in Arrested Development. And he played Tobias almost exactly like Ray is played.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So, like, I wonder if... I mean, that was just a coincidence. I'm sure that was how it was written. But, like, Shawn Wayans played that character... Because, like, in the scene that's the I Know What You Did Last Summer riff, like, the couple, Shane Elizabeth and her boyfriend are making out, and he's like, "Man, babe, stop touching my ass." And then Ray's like, "Oh, sorry." There's, like, all this, like, stuff that's in there when Ray and Brenda are going to have sex. He wants her to dress up wearing the football uniform.
I always remember that as a kid, because I don't know why I always thought that was hilarious, just because he keeps having her go further and further. Like, that joke always stuck in my mind.
And then he's like, okay, now do me.
Yes, yeah.
So it's all this like stuff where,
and then, but see, even though I just watch it today, like the 1 and 2, because they're so similar, blend in.
Yeah.
Because like there's a bit where he's like, "Ray effed me," and I thought that I was like, "Yeah," in the first, no, it happened in the second one. Well, yeah, they're so similar.
Because there's like some sequences. I myself was like, which one is it in? I can't remember which part that's in. But it's one of those things where, and then it had "Was Up" like from the Bud Light commercials. And so
which might be the only time that was ever funny.
It parodied just a lot of stuff.
They did the Blair Witch parody.
Yeah, they did the Blair Witch. She runs out. Sherry O'Terry is the Gail Weathers.
Sherry O'Terry's really funny.
Yeah, she's really funny.
She's great.
Yeah. Which is, again, Saturday Night Live person.
Yeah, I mean, like, and two, I couldn't remember the plot of the second one, but I kind of remember the plot of this one. That's why you said 1 or 2, because it was like 3 somewhere.
I remember.
And I was like, I think 1, just because I felt like it's more of a story. Because, when they start getting into just becoming sketch movies, like, there's not really a lot to talk about other than just like, hey, was this funny or was it not? And that's really subjective.
I always remember the first one being more like, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And that's kind of what I remember, but it's more like Scream.
But I also had confused parts of I Know What You Did Last Summer in this. Because for whatever reason, I thought I Know What You Did Last Summer that Ryan Felipe's character got a picture of his penis being small and he got mad. I was like, oh no, that's from the scary movie. Well, because whenever he'd done that, I kept waiting for that scene. I was like, oh no. It's
okay, so what's the most memorable, when you think of this movie, what's the bit that pops up in your head first? Because I always think of the fat lady getting stuck in the cat,
I remember that as a kid.
The cat door in the garage.
Because I watched Scream so much at that time.
What didn't he say, like something smart ass too? Like she falls, he does something. He's like, and walks off. But yeah, because the cat crawls through the door and she gets in, and the door goes up and kills her. Like I always remember that. And Carmen Electra grabbing the banana instead of the gun or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I remember her getting stabbed like that. Like I said, the football gag for some weird reason. Her Anna Faris lifting up her dress or whatever and it being like extremely hairy. The whole sex scene there. I had kind of forgot, but I always kind of remembered her saying, "Would you settle for PG-13?" But I forgot how that gag ends. Yeah. And like I laughed really loud this time, and it's just like a guy's chest and he falls back.
But see, I always confuse that with the second one, because it might have also happened in the second.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I can't remember, because I know that she's like in the PJs and the guy from Malcolm in the Middle is trying to do something. Yeah. And then it's just like hairy man nipples or something.
And I like her dad, who he's great. He's in The Burbs. He's in tons of stuff. Blank Check. Yeah. As the
and then at the end, he's like, they killed everybody and put a bunch of drugs everywhere.
The weirdos, they stash drugs all over the house.
So there's just
and the gag too when he's talking to her about like the joke about, remember, you cut it with baking soda, not baking powder, because then they'll have mushrooms going out of their head or something, and she laughs.
And it's one of those things, like, the movie just peppers in a lot of jokes like that. like you said,
it's
like,
quantity over quality, but for me, the quantity mostly hits, and it still hits.
Because they're trying to do the rapid fire, like how much stuff can we fit?
Well, it's a movie,
how many bits can we do?
It's a movie that has a ton of trailer moments, because things I remember from the trailers for this movie or the advertisements when she's on the phone, when Cindy's in the house on the phone, he's like, "Do you know where I am?" And she's like, "Yes, you're behind the couch."
Yeah, that one is another one I always
that's like a moment that I remember.
Yeah,
I remember
there was that moment too. Yeah, when they're smoking. Like I remember.
Yeah, because that's where he has the big pink tongue hanging out too. Yeah,
yeah. So I remember that. Yeah, him smoking the bong, the WhatsApp. So there's all these like little things that add up, and then there's also a movie. There's like a ton of drug usage in it. I mean, just marijuana, but it's one of those things where like a lot of movies at the time, like Scream and stuff, didn't really do that. At least I remember. So this one definitely had humor hinged a little bit more in a different direction, which the movies, in my opinion, lost when they didn't have the Wayans involved.
They just become more of a general spoof thing.
But like what I like about the Wayans when they were doing it, they were like edgy and they push a lot of I feel like they pushed boundaries as far as what comedy was at that time.
And you felt, honestly, you watch it too, and you feel like some of the stuff like, oh, that's a little racist, but it's like, well, they're primarily behind it. You know what I mean? Like some of the stuff is like, those aren't like maybe the best stereotypes, but they use them to play it up.
It's one of those things where it
helps you be more comfortable laughing at some of the stuff that you may be
because it's not a bunch of white dudes in a room writing it.
But granted, they touch on everything, homosexuality. So they don't. Not everything's safe just because they're doing it, but at least
because they kind of expand the breadth of everything. Yeah. And it's funny if you forget too in Scary Movie 2. The opening, which is the riff on The Exorcist, that has them all sitting there playing piano to rap songs, has Andy Richter dropping M-bombs, which is something he probably would like, maybe I shouldn't do that, like, if he were to do it today.
Yeah.
But back then, if it was people, like, the people writing it are the ones who could...
It all depends on context, though.
Yeah.
It all depends on context. Just because character's supposed to be an ass, you know what I mean?
Just because one person is okay with something doesn't mean that everybody that meets the same demographic as them is okay with it.
Yeah.
But it just feels a lot more true to do these comedy movies if the people who are writing the movie are the target audience, and, that's a little bit different than...
You want to push boundaries, and the two, you don't want to, you don't want to just like use everybody as a punching bag.
But see, I don't feel like this movie punched.
No.
This is not punching.
But I'm saying, I think if like say I was like, oh, I'm going to do a spoof movie or something. Which now I think you get diminishing returns because Vine doesn't exist. That's a poor example. But essentially, like, Vines was like, oh, we'll just do this bit and this is it. You know what I mean? We don't need to make a whole movie.
Well, YouTube video or Facebook videos.
But because these have so many writers and so many comedy writers, because they are packing full, my suggestion would be like, hey, have the most diverse writing room you can, more so than any other writing room, and have the, hey, just hit as hard as you can on these jokes that you think are fair game. And not one person doesn't speak for a whole demographic, but hopefully having some diversity in there, you guys can make good decisions, but also have a high output of jokes.
You can never make anything that speaks for everybody.
No,
but if you have different voices in there saying, hey, maybe we should tweak this, or this is a bit too much.
And I wonder too, like, so the Officer Doofy being mentally challenged, which they call him retard, but by the end of it, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of halfway forgot, like, do they get away with it? I'm sure you would have to ask a bunch of different people, and people have different opinions, only because he was like conning people. You know what I mean? Like, is it like he was using other people's perception of somebody with mental disabilities to his advantage? You know what I mean? Like, because it's like not really poking fun at him, or is it? It's such a weird thing, but I think they get away with a little bit more because he actually wasn't.
I would totally believe
he was using it to con people.
So I would believe in either direction that one, they're playing from the beginning. So like I said, full spoilers, you can't really spoil it. Like the one orchestrating and doing everything was Officer Doofy. And it's like, honestly, that's a better twist for like Scream 2 or 3 than anything they did.
It's another film that I don't want to bring up, but I was like, oh, they do the exact same thing where all of a sudden he walks and transforms.
Well, it's Usual Suspects.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
That's and then it's like she has the coffee mug and it says like doofus or something. It's one of those things where it's like, that movie's from '96. Why are they parodying this movie from like 4 years before this?
Because it's probably one of those movies at the time, because movies stayed in people's minds a lot longer. So everybody's probably like, man, you gotta see it.
Spaceballs came out what? Like, I think I saw 86, 87.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't move that fast necessarily.
Well, I think that things
again,
move a lot quicker today
Yeah,
than they did in
'cause
the 2000s, 90s, 80s.
If you did like before The Force Awakens came out and you did a Star Wars spoof at this point in time that was like Spaceballs, you'd be like, what?
well, we had
Yeah.
Thumb Wars in the 90s. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then they made the Spaceballs TV show
Well, I think
in 2009, which I think is
Then
supposed to be
Family Guy's
terrible.
done a ton of
I mean, I
it.
think a big
Yeah, they
part,
did their whole-
a big part of things today are, so you have like stuff like Family Guy and South Park and all these different
And like
shows.
the Adult Swim, Robot Chicken, all that
But I
stuff.
think also there were fewer franchise or tentpole films coming out back in the 90s and 2000s. There were
They
still
needed
plenty
to
of them.
fill, you know what I mean,
they're-
dates.
But like today, you get 3 Marvel movies in a year, you get 3 DC movies, you get 5 other Disney movies. Like back then, they were a little bit more spread out. If you look at like the highest grossing movies, because we've done on the podcast before, look at the highest grossing movies for the 90s and 2000s, and you see a lot of stuff in the top 10 that would never be able to make it today. Like adult oriented dramas being in the top 5, like that wouldn't happen. Or it wouldn't be as frequent or standard.
have our taste in film just went down to where it's like, give me the
Well,
superhero
I think we're kind of
and a
reaching
large popcorn.
with not to go too far.
40 pizzas
So you
in
have
30
Disney
days.
Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO is doing HBO Max or Warner Brothers, CBS, or whatever is going to do HBO Max, and then there's going to be the Universal streaming app that has all that stuff. So there's going to be so many services. They're just trying to pump out new content just to have things to lure subscribers. We're going to reach a point because already at now I can't watch everything that comes out that I want to.
Well, that's why like I pick like the way I do it. Like Disney Plus is the most affordable of all of them out right now. I think maybe Hulu's cheaper if you just get like the base plan or whatever. But like Disney Plus is like what, $7 a month?
Apple TV is the cheapest at $5.
But like what's on?
And there's
Apple
nothing
TV?
on there.
Yeah, there's like nothing
the
on
Jennifer
there.
Aniston show and then some like other stuff. But
yeah. Anyway, but like there is more content than you have time, and especially too.
But for me, honestly, like Disney, like I made my own profile and like I added 3 movies. Like if it wasn't for my daughter, I would not have that.
The only reason
at
why
all.
I actually the stuff I've watched more on Disney because like I'm not a big Disney movie person. That wasn't what we watched growing up. We watched like
we watch like Aladdin. And
Yeah,
Lion
but,
King,
like, we
I
probably
watch them in
watch-
school a lot, and I'm like watching them back with my daughter. I'm like, these aren't that.
But like the
from the
movies
music.
that like left me a bigger impression and at a kid at that point was like Shrek, and because that was like I was like
So
10.
Derek, you are lying because I remember that Aladdin got played every single day at our
Oh,
house.
I probably did. Aladdin was a good movie, but I'm saying like when I think of movies that I remember the most from a kid,
Yeah.
it's like Predator or RoboCop.
But it's also
or
stuff that arguably
Tim
children
Burton.
shouldn't be watching.
Yeah, like
but-
Tim Burton's Batman. I remember, or in Star Wars and like Total stuff like that's what I remember the most. Then I remember like Lion King
Well, I just went with
and Aladdin.
I went with Disney Plus because I got the bundle that's Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus for $12.99 a month.
Yeah,
and
it's-
just getting Hulu and ESPN would be more than that.
The only thing I like, but getting back to what we're talking about, there's so much more content out there. And I don't know if you can make a comedy movie like this now that would make much money. I honestly think now that movie to get relegated to a streaming service. I don't think it would
Because I
probably
think
ever
the,
compete.
the big
Absolutely.
difference is, so back then you didn't have
Honestly, Adam Sandler's. I mean, it was a big deal. He made a lot of money, but he's kind of been relegated to streaming services in those vein of films he makes. When it's not something that he's not doing, like Uncut Gems or
The weird thing about Adam Sandler though is like I think he's a funny guy. I still think he can be funny. I just think that at this
he's
point,
a great actor. If he,
I just
if
think
he-
at this point he's like just give me the money.
So I think
you
I think he has done like because was it the Meyerowitz
And
stories
you know
or whatever?
what?
That
Somebody's
he did
got
that
that was
really good.
great. Somebody's got to drag Rob Snyder's sorry ass somewhere and make him some money.
But
That's
like-
all he's doing now.
But like with Scary Movie, I think part of it is there were not things like there were like the MTV Movie Awards skits they would do sometimes and things like that. But there wasn't as much stuff parodying the pop culture the way there is today because today a movie comes out and is popular. You go on Facebook and then you'll see your friend, aunt, cousin, uncle, somebody share some video that some dude shot that's a parody of a scene from a movie that has 25 million views.
or just a meme that gets fired off moments after Baby Yoda appears in The Mandalorian. You know what I mean?
So
So, it's like
yeah.
it's hard to make it fresh.
So the
and
idea
keep
is,
up
like,
with that.
Back then, there wasn't that complete, super churn of
Yeah.
pop culture. Things kind of lingered a little bit longer, which is why they're referencing movies from 1996 and 7 and stuff in the movie that comes out. And, the production process, I'm sure, took a while.
Yeah, now I don't know if because I do feel like the teen audience of now is so vastly different then because like again we remember all that stuff, but a lot of kids teenagers, I feel like now, if you did a movie, they probably wouldn't have that kind of stuff in their mind because everything's changed so much.
I mean,
now the kids are watching Euphoria and 13 Reasons Why.
Well, I mean, just think about too. One thing we took out completely is like video games too. You add in video games on top of everything else, and it's like, yeah, man.
I just think that in terms of like a movie like Scary Movie that is taking a lot of, elements from pop culture and parodying them up. And it's not satire because they're not really saying anything about it for the most part. It's just parody because they're just like, let's redo this scene funny. And I think that in today's world, that doesn't work because our culture is set up with memes and videos and TikToks and tweets and all this stuff that within a few months, they've completely burned through and worn out something that would have gotten years of mileage.
Which is a shame.
Which is why South Park thrives because they do that weekly schedule.
Because South Park,
you know what I mean? They basically make a whole episode in a week.
Well, because South Park was one of the out of the animated shows, they were one of the most nimble because using the computer animated and the way they make it, something happens today, they can have that in like the next episode of the one after that.
It's so wild. They just kind of seem like I don't know if the production pipeline was like similarly fast, but it's almost like they just fell on their ass lucky that the style of the way they used to do the show made it much easier to do, you know what I mean, where they can do that in a week. Like they got so lucky, and that's what I think kept that show going.
Well, because you can still have your overarching storylines you're doing, but then you can pivot and include topical things in it. Then oftentimes actually say something about it, not just have something that references it.
Well, the bad thing,
I know a lot of people turning that show. I haven't watched it in years.
The bad thing though is like when you lose stuff like I think this is a quality comedy movie as far as like it's still funny, it's still enjoyable, it's not long, it's all about the bits. I mean, everything's a bit.
It keeps moving.
And now it's nostalgic for us.
Yeah, now it is nostalgic.
Yeah.
But again, there's stuff that's still funny and relevant. Maybe not relevant, but still funny. Whereas, like, now that we don't get movies like this anymore that are... Because this was, for what it was quality. Compared to what you got in later installments and other movies they made.
And what those movies typically turn out to be today. Because I remember, Epic Movie and a lot of that. And now I think you don't even really get these movies. I think you just get, lowbrow, softcore porn versions or something.
Yeah.
But
what I'm saying, though, is, like this movie, we can look
still
back.
Got those back then, though.
Yeah, you still got those
Bear
back then.
Winch Project.
Yeah.
Probably the same year.
Or the G strings. You get to, you can go back and watch this, and I think you can still get laughs out of it, enjoyment out of it, and whatever. Now, you take a current TikTok video or whatever that's got 25 million views, and you 15 years from now, you watch, you're like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Because there's actually comedic writers in this. They have a process.
There's stuff in the movie that's kind of just universally funny. That's not really tied to, because at one point, from the original Scream, Billy contextualizes everything through movies, and this movie had just the parody of that. I'm forgetting what it was because this reminds me of the Exorcist. Like, wow, is it when I masturbate at the cross or something?
Yeah, he said, I was thinking about you last night, and she said, he said, I was watching The Exorcist. Yeah, and she said, is it about that time I got drunk and I masturbated with a cross?
So there's these little throw-in jokes like that. There's also stuff where, she's like, this isn't like a movie, though. This is real life. He's like, no, it's a movie. Like, there's the camera guy, there's the script supervisor, there's the DP, there's the... So there's these things that are just kind of, fourth wall breaking jokes that kind of apply, like the Deadpool would do or something. It's just funny to watch a movie like this because they made money going in. They made money until they stopped making money, because I know that 3 and 4 I think made money. I think 5 is maybe where they dropped off.
They made 5 of them.
And it's funny, but
I went to see up to the 3rd one in theaters, and then
because they may have made more of them. I don't really remember, but the funny thing, too, is in these movies, a lot of them, they just did not care about effects. Like, they would have people shooting guns, and it's just sound effects with nothing to go with it. And if it's a movie of that type, I guess people aren't really looking for accuracy.
No. The veneer, the illusion is broken. You know what I mean? Like, right away. Like, the tone of the film, everything.
And there's, the other bits that I remember is when the killer is chasing Cindy up the stairs, and she throws the grandma down.
Yes, and the piano.
And then the piano, and then the killer's running down the steps, and then the grandma gets hit by the piano.
Yeah,
so
that's a good hit, too. Yeah. The dummy goes flying away.
But that's stuff that's always kind of funny, because you watch
it's physical
movies,
humor.
But you're like, it'll be funny. And that's why I kind of like these movies, because they kind of capture that in the moment when you're done watching the movie.
Or you're watching it with a friend.
Yeah, you goof on it, and it's like, oh, they actually did it, but it's funny.
Yeah.
And then I know Julie I've made her watch the scene from Scary Movie 2 with the turkey dinner a bunch of times. We even kind of parodied that in that Thanksgiving dinner thing we made. But it's just funny how like elements from these movies, like bits from people who watched them, and a lot of the lure was you saw this when you weren't supposed to. You saw this when you were, even if you're 15,
But
it's a R-rated movie.
I think we can all agree, though, and maybe y'all won't, I don't know, but the dinner scene from 2 is still a very good
That's the high water
scene.
mark,
And
of series.
that's lasted.
Because it is Chris, what's in it, Chris Elliott?
Yeah,
it's Chris Elliott.
because he's funny.
Yeah.
But
And
like
there's-
it's would probably not be written today because it's making fun of a
I don't know,
handicapped person.
but it's like
but it's
everybody's
so good.
reaction to it. That's what's funny
Yeah.
about it too. It's not just we're not laughing just at a handicapped person. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not that. It's the fact that
character he's made.
nobody wants to offend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everybo's grossed out.
Well, then there's also
The entire back and forth of like, well, you never get. He's like, let's give you a standing ovation. He's like, well, let me give you a hand.
Yeah.
But
And then there's my favorite thing was still like when he's looking, there's like he was like basting. He's like, I don't know what this, but I'm gonna lick it.
and
So there's just all these goofy moments, but
that's what I'm
like,
saying. This is there is some,
and it's really funny. It's really
good
funny.
comedy.
The Scary Movie 2, the kind of bones for it was a combination of Hill on Haunted House and 13 Ghosts,
Yeah,
or the House on Haunted Hill, and
13 Ghosts.
13
Tori
Ghosts.
Spelling. Now I remember the Tori Spelling
But what's
sequence in that too.
funny? But what's
Yeah.
funny is in the first one, Shane Elizabeth was in it, and she was in the 13 Ghosts, which was then parodied by the sequel, and then in Scream, I remember they said like, "Oh, who would play you in a movie?" And didn't Sydney say that like, "Oh, probably played by Tori Spelling or something"?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
And then in the movie within the movie, they had Tori Spelling, and then she was in Scary Movie. So it's like all this crossover between these movies. But then like Scary Movie was after. When did Scream 3 come out? 99 or 2000? I mean, it was a Miramax thing too. So they probably had, because it's funny because it's Miramax, because like at the end of you see like Harvey Weinstein's name all over it.
Yeah. And two, Scary Movie was at 3. That almost gets confusing because which one is it? Because Jay and Silent Bob are in Scary Movie 3. I mean, Scream 3, right?
They are?
Yes.
Yeah, Jay and Silent Bob are in it. And is that... And I also get confused because in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, they are on the set of, I guess, a Scream movie because Wes Craven is there counting money. like it all gets right. In my mind, that era, all 3 of those
I didn't
films.
know they were in.
Yeah, Jay and Silent Bob
They just
are
made a
in.
cameo
Was the
or something.
I think they're
footage-
smoking weed in a field. Yeah.
Was the footage?
with Courtney Cox.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Was the footage in Scary Movie, was that when they went to when Regina King's character, when they were at the movie theater, was that actual footage from Shakespeare in Love?
I think it might have been.
Yeah, and she's like, "It's a man, or it's a woman."
Yeah.
So it's just funny back in that era, you had all the interplay between all these movies, and they play kind of fast and loose, more so than I think people would today, because I don't think anybody would want to threaten their Oscar bait serious prestige film with a goofy comedy. I mean, just imagine in recent era if they're making. I'm trying to think of what like a super serious movie recently has been. Like what won the Oscar recently? Like if they're making Moonlight, and then they have a character in the background that's in some goofy R-rated comedy. I don't think they would really do that today.
Yeah. But it's funny that they did that because it's like a bygone era. Like I think these are maybe didn't take them. They obviously didn't take themselves serious at all because of what it is, but they also didn't take the other movies very serious.
Well, that was back to like the Kevin Smith stuff with like Jay and Silent Bob.
That was
Strike Back. They were allowed to reference and do a bunch of stuff, and
that was kind of a big spoof movie. Like that was almost their just like broad comedy as well.
But now they made a new Jay and Silent Bob movie. Maybe they'll make another scary movie.
I'm curious to see that new Jay and Silent
Yeah,
Bob.
I want to see it, but it's more out of morbid curiosity at this point.
The only way I want to watch another scary movie is if they brought the Wayne brothers back. Like I
here's
have
the
no
thing, though.
interest.
Here's the thing, though. They've made movies since then.
Yeah.
I've watched bits and pieces of them. Like, yeah, it's not, the formula really doesn't work anymore. Because especially, like I said, you have like the sketch shows like Saturday Night Live, Key and Peele. You have YouTube sketches, just memes. People, once something hits pop culture, it's torn to shreds within like 6 months. And then, Key and Peele's gone off air. Saturday Night Live still exists. But like the main thing now is you see people that make the Facebook videos that parody stuff, and it gets 100 million hits or whatever.
Well, look, how about this? How about we go really old school, especially circa 2000s, do a horror movie, but it's Jackass. There you go.
You're making a Jackass type film, and it turns out to be a horror.
No. It's just a horror film. Like, oh, welcome to Jackass, and we get stabbed in the neck, and then they just stab me in the neck. Just there you go, man. And that's.
I was saying what Marlon Wayans is doing now.
Because then they do one called 50 Shades of Black.
Yeah.
And then
I'm not seeing anything as far as coming up, but yeah, they did 50 Shades of Black. Let's see, or what else? A haunted house and the haunted house.
Yeah, I watched a haunted house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that stuff like hitting Netflix or whatever service and seeing bits and pieces of it.
I still thought that a haunted house was funny, but
I think just the target audience for a lot of this stuff. So the target audience for Scary Movie when it came out, even though it made a shit ton of money, but it was still adults that probably drove that. But it was cool for teens because they're like, oh, these other movies I'm supposed to watch, and then this is a parody of it that's even raunchier. I want to see that. As opposed to, I think that the culture has shifted a little bit, and like the horror movies that do well at the box office and are popular now, I think that they've changed a little bit over the years.
Well, I mean, you think about like in
I've got to go, guys. But continue. So anyway, I like this movie. I liked it when I was younger. I probably give it like I don't know. There's some bad moments. Like I started turning on it when they made fun of Prince. I'm like, oh come on now.
Yeah, he was alive at the time.
Yeah, he was.
But it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter.
Prince is eternal.
Yeah, but maybe like 7 or 8 out of 10 for me.
I would be in an 8 because I enjoyed it, and it's so funny. And I think I'm always going to prefer 2 a little more, but just because I've watched that so much. But yeah, I would give it a 7 or 8. I'll give it a definite 8. I mean, I enjoyed it. Me and Courtney watched it. She thought it was funny. We, you didn't get boring.
I fall in the same camp. It's one of those movies that really I could rewatch a few times because it's just so goofy.
I did not know that it made that much money. You know, that's where I get kind of surprised is that because I always thought like it would have been like a pretty decent hit, but I didn't know it was like that big of a hit.
Yeah,
because I would never thought that.
Make as much noise as
I can later. Do you need the transmitter?
No, that's good. I'll get that later.
Okay.
Yeah, I would never thought it would have made like 400 million. I would have thought it'd been like 100 million.
Well, I mean, it was like 250 something adjusted for inflation.
Oh, okay, but still 250 million for what that is.
Or 275. Worldwide, it made $275 million, which adjusted for inflation would be like 450 today or somewhere like that. So a movie that would be just an absolute huge hit if released today. So it's just one of those things where it's funny to look at what it was versus, nobody puts, $20 million budget back then is probably, almost double that now. They really wouldn't put that into a parody film at this point, I don't think.
No, I guess I think the parody genre is kind of...
I think if anything, they would split this up into a series on Netflix, like they did with Wet Hot American Summer or something. Put a little bit of budget behind it, but not a ton.
I just think these movies, as far as being like mainstream, like theatrical releases, I don't see it happening anymore.
Well, those types of movies have not made a lot of money. They've run their course.
What was the movie 43? Was something kind of... It was just like a big bit movie sketch, and it just was really bizarre.
That was a sketch anthology.
Yeah, but that didn't do good, and that had a whole bunch of, big name people in it.
I think it was just they kind of were owed favors by people because they had a segment with like Hugh Jackman and Kate Winslet, and they had Halle Berry in it, and
they
Chris
even
Pratt and Anna
bring it back to this. He had Anna Faris in it, so... It just, you see movies like that, and that didn't do very good. And you had a couple other movies kind of in that vein.
It's like something else I give the movie props for. Even though Anna Faris is going to have, like a very long, successful career, at the time, they kind of cast somebody that wasn't the stereotypical lead for those types of films.
Yeah.
Because they didn't go for the, super thin-waisted, very large-breasted, stereotypical... they kind of did that joke with Carmen Electra in the beginning.
Yeah.
And Shannon Elizabeth, they kind of played up as a joke too, like her character. And honestly, I think she does better work in this movie than a lot of the teen movies she was in, like American Pie.
Yeah.
Because when she's going into school and she's dressed all prissy for her dad, and then when she gets like outside of her dad, she rips off all of her clothes and wearing like the mini skirt and all that stuff. I was like, that's pretty funny. And like I thought that they used her to great usage in this movie. But
I think too, like maybe the Anna Faris is she's a good comedic actor, so it might have been just value.
She had amazing reactions.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it was refreshing watching it, and it wasn't like they were going for like the specific look a lot of those movies of the era went for, especially ones that were trying to sell. Because like in this movie too, it had male nudity.
Yeah.
Like something else we can talk about was Miss Man. That would probably not work as well today. Where it's the gym teacher whose name is Miss Man, and at one point there is a scrotum sack hanging out from, and she talks about having like a secret. So it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to tell exactly what the backstory is and what the intention is. It was obviously played for a joke, but it didn't really seem to be at the expense of the character. It was more just the situation.
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of this stuff when you watch it, even if it is going after a marginalized group, it never feels like they're punching down. They're not making fun of them to just make fun of that group. Like, oh, look, this is a gay person. Gay people are funny. Like, it's not like that. You know, I
think with like the Ray character, it's not the joke that like he may be gay or bi or whatever. The joke is just he's so oblivious about it and goes about his life and does all these things.
Yeah, but nobody else thinks it's gay either. Like, they just accept it like, oh, yeah.
Because there's the one scene where he asks the other guys, like, does this make it look gay? When he's like, asks him about a shirt, and he's like, no. He's like, okay. So then he like takes it off and like ties the shirt up in a bow or something. Yeah. So it's just one of these things where there's a lot of jokes in it that probably wouldn't land as well today. Like you said, though, it doesn't feel mean-spirited.
Yeah,
but then again, not being a part of the groups that are, I mean, they make jokes at the expense of white characters. But there's nothing specific about that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, come on, what am I going to be upset about?
Yeah.
There's nothing. I mean, it's the groups who their mere existence is offensive or upsetting to people are the ones who have the experiences and the opinions that matter more on that type of thing. And I don't think this movie came across as mean-spirited against anybody.
Yeah, I didn't see this. And again, me just being a regular white guy, like, it's hard for me to say that. But just watching, it's like, I don't feel like that's mean-spirited. I don't feel like that's a
So once again, if somebody has a different opinion, then definitely let us know.
Yeah,
but just to me, it feels like the jokes for the situations, not... And then, like you said, like the doofy thing where they just played it as a huge joke and he like spit and slobbered and stuff.
Then even have like one scene where he got something out, he's writing it down with a crown or something.
And he has like the vacuum cleaner he uses on himself.
Yeah.
But then you turn around at the end with the big reveal and he's like this mastermind that was behind all of it. And he just used that as a smoke screen to throw everyone off. Doesn't make any sense in the scope of the story if it was literally one of the characters' brothers or something. But it was at the time would have been a better twist for the Scream movies if Dewey was the killer.
Yeah.
And just been doing his like naive act the entire time. But yeah, like, so it just did a lot of things that pushed a lot of buttons that re-examined through today's sensibilities may not pass muster. But just watching it from the era it was in and not, once again, not being a part of any of the groups that could have possibly been marginalized by it in any way. Like my saying it didn't seem offensive doesn't really mean anything. It's just to me, I didn't come away feeling like, oh, gross. Because there's some stuff you watch from not even that long ago and you're like, man, this is kind of mean-spirited. This doesn't really work.
Well, like I said, that's where like I watch it and no point did I feel like they were
even The
down.
Office and like some of the Michael Scott stuff feels a little bit like, oh,
yeah.
Today with him being, grabby with the females and stuff like that. So, this movie is one that's definitely a time capsule. It's a time capsule movie. It's something that was really funny and really successful in 2000. And if you have nostalgia for that era, it's on Amazon Prime. And I think it's on Crackle or Tubi or one of those services too. But it's on there. It is funny. I still enjoy it and find a lot of entertainment in it. It might, re-examining it through current times, a little bit different.
You can do that with everything. It's even like Caddyshack and all these different things.
Yeah, so
like,
if you want to, any comedy or any movie from a bygone era can be re-examined. You can find problems with it. But just this one was meant to be a lighthearted comedy because this is also one where they just straight up kill characters. You come back in the next movie and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So there's not any real narrative consistency and they're not trying to make a statement or a message. It was just literally saying, let's just make a movie cram-packed full of references to movies.
Yeah, just big one. Everything's a bit. That's a bit, this is a bit, and it's all just... And that's one thing, too, where you go look at movies, like, even though comedy, I think, is hard, it doesn't age very well sometimes. Like, you go back and you look at... And this is not a smart comedy, I don't think. But you can go watch it because it fires at a rapid pace. This is how many jokes can you get. It's not like you said. It's not the quality. They're just pumping out the quantity, and a lot of them hit.
Before Family Guy was really mainstream. Because when did Family Guy come out?
Family Guy was out at this time because Family Guy came out in 99, 2000. But Family Guy hadn't really developed into what it is now.
Yeah, because it wasn't like the cultural phenomenon, and like I said, you didn't have YouTube where people just posted the specific clips. Because Family Guy was 1999. So it's funny, like all this stuff that intersected with the Scary Movie series, and you had like the later movies that had like Charlie Sheen in them and all this stuff, and it kind of went in a different direction. But like kind of unheralded when you think about it for it to have a non-white director and to be so massively successful
But
as
you
it
never,
was.
but you never hear they even brought up. It's interesting to say that because you talk about like, you know, when Jordan Peele had his movie and it was really
Because
successful.
they're more like Oscar bait successful in recent
But
times.
successful. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I didn't even realize that. You know, I've watched a movie 100 times and didn't know that.
Yeah, because I just thought about it more when I was watching it, and I was like, you know, this made a ton of money. And then Scary Movie 2, I'm trying to remember if it was the same, because Scary Movie 2 was also directed by Keenen Ivory Wayans. And then there were 13 writers credited on IMDb for Scary Movie 2. So no way to tell who had what level of influence, but I would say that since it was directed by somebody whose last name is Wayans, I would say the writers who are also stars in the film whose names are Wayans probably had a good deal of input.
Well, you can tell too, though. Like I would have to look at the writers in the third one, but when they left, the entire vibe of the movies.
I mean, the third one was still successful because it riffed off some like Signs and others and 8 Mile and stuff like
when
that.
you got Charlie Sheen to be in it.
But the humor style changed. It became a little bit less crass.
Yeah.
That's part of the enjoyment of it. So yeah, so it's a kind of a time capsule movie that you can still enjoy. Showing it to a 17-year-old today that you know, has come up in a culture where like they may look at some of the gags in this and be like, oh, this is terrible. But I don't really feel like it wasn't mean-spirited and against anybody. I think a lot of stuff today plays it as like, oh, this is bad. It's just more of like, if you thought Tobias from Arrested Development was funny, then a lot of the humor in this is fine too.
Yeah, they just take it up an even higher notch than that, than Tobias.
And like, once again, I think it's mostly just playing on the fact that this guy is doing all this stuff and nobody acknowledges it or pretends.
Yeah.
So it's still an entertaining movie that you can check out. It's on Amazon Prime. I don't know what all the sequels, like we haven't really touched on. I don't really have any desire to go into like 3 and all those other ones. I think they made till 5. I don't remember. I know there was one that had Snoop Dogg in it. And
I think that was the 3rd or 4th one.
Because I know that they made them for a few years because they just kind of had a little bit of diminishing returns after 3. Because let's see, so there's Scary Movie 5. So
I mean, that was in 2013. So they had one come out this decade.
That was way after the fact. Because Scary Movie 4, that was one that the box office for it was still $178 million worldwide. And then Scary Movie 3 was one where that made $220 million worldwide.
I mean, they made a lot
Scary
of money.
Movie 2 made $141 million worldwide. So that's probably why they had the creative shift, because for the third one, the director was David Zucker. So they changed directors.
What did the 5th one make?
And then the 5th one, I think that one was just a really non-event. It still made worldwide $78 million.
It'd be funny
So that's not terrible.
No,
I didn't hear about it. I mean, I remember I saw part of it on.
I remember seeing it, like commercials. It's just funny that it lasted that long and then made, you know, never made less than $50 million on any sequel.
And never dipped. But I mean, they were still far more successful than the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens. I mean, until like the recent Halloween. So interesting slice of history that I think kind of is not talked about as much because it was a comedy and a parody. But, you know, go check it out. But so that'll wrap up our discussion of Scary Movie. You can find all the stuff we're doing on houseofavastore.com, find links to all the social media accounts, all that stuff. If you think that the YouTube stuff we discussed earlier in terms of how we're probably going to handle it going forward, if you have comments on that, let us know. So you can find everything at HBTVS.com. I'm not sure if the next episodes will be. We'll probably get that figured out soon, but keep an eye on our social media accounts on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff to see what we're going to be covering next. But that'll wrap up this episode of the House by Vastore podcast. Thanks for listening.
House by the Video.